Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling Deuteronomy 23.
Oh, Deuteronomy 23.
Yes, a chapter that's absolutely packed with rules and regulations for the Israelites. It's basically like a guidebook, you
Mm.
know, on how they were supposed to live, covering everything from like religious gatherings to hygiene.
Even how to treat runaway slaves.
Right, exactly. It's wild. So, it's a fascinating snapshot of life, like thousands of years ago. But the question is, what can we learn from it today?
Yeah. What's interesting to me about Deuteronomy 23 is it's not just these like random rules. It's really about like creating a society that reflects, I don't know, certain values, holiness, justice, compassion.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Right away, Deuteronomy 23 lays out who was excluded from the assembly of the Lord. Certain people, like even entire nations, weren't allowed to participate in religious gatherings.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems a little harsh, doesn't it?
It does seem, I don't know, jarring from a modern perspective, but
Yeah.
when you consider the historical context, it was all about maintaining ritual purity within their community. This was a group of people who, like, truly believed that God's presence dwelled among them.
So it was about preserving the sanctity of their, like, religious gatherings.
Exactly. And while we don't, apply these exclusions literally today, it does raise questions, kind of interesting questions, about how we form our own communities. Like, who do we include and who do we exclude?
Right.
And what are the criteria? Are
Yeah.
they based on shared values, beliefs, something else entirely?
Yeah. It definitely makes you think about belonging and exclusion, even in our own communities today. But moving on.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 23 also gets into some pretty specific rules about cleanliness, particularly in military camps. Like they even had instructions for bathroom breaks. Dig a hole, bury your
It's
waste.
like the ancient world's version of leave no trace,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And while it's easy to chuckle at, the specifics, it highlights this connection between physical and spiritual purity in their worldview. Like maintaining a clean and ordered camp wasn't just about hygiene. It was about, honoring God's presence even in the midst of war.
It's almost like they're saying that even the mundane parts of life can have this, like, spiritual dimension.
Precisely. It's a reminder that our actions, even, seemingly small ones, can reflect our values and beliefs.
Okay. Now let's talk about something that really struck me. The instructions on how to treat runaway slaves.
Hmm.
Deuteronomy 23 specifically says they should be offered refuge and not return to their masters.
It's a powerful statement,
Yeah.
especially for that time period.
Totally. It shows a concern for the vulnerable.
Yes, a recognition of inherent dignity.
It seems pretty progressive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were basically offering sanctuaries to these individuals. What do you think motivated that kind of compassion?
Well, remember, they had a history of being enslaved themselves.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that experience probably really shaped their understanding of oppression and their commitment to protecting those who were fleeing similar circumstances.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if we applied that same level of compassion and protection to, like, refugees and asylum seekers today?
It certainly challenges us to examine our own attitudes and actions toward those who are seeking refuge and safety. It really is.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting to think about how those, ancient values could shape modern policies. Shifting gears a bit, Deuteronomy 23 also tackles the importance of keeping promises, specifically vows made to God.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a matter of like good intentions, It was about accountability, trustworthiness.
Right. Breaking a vow was a serious offense back then. It makes you think about how much weight words carried back then. Like, do you think that emphasis on keeping your word is something we've lost in modern society?
It's an interesting question. I mean, we live in a fast-paced world, right?
Yeah.
Commitments can feel more fluid, but the principle of honoring your word, like, that's still relevant. Whether it's a formal contract or even just a simple promise to a friend, like trustworthiness, that is foundational to strong relationships. Like, how do you have a functioning society without that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about building a reputation of reliability and integrity. Now, Deuteronomy 23 also gets into some seemingly random instructions, like how to behave in your neighbor's vineyard or field.
Oh, right.
You could eat grapes to satisfy your hunger, but you couldn't hoard or take more than you needed.
Right.
It's like, take only what you need.
Yeah, it's about respecting boundaries and being mindful of others' resources.
Right.
This simple act of restraint, I think it fostered a sense of community and fairness among the Israelites. And it's a reminder that even in our interactions, with neighbors, colleagues, even strangers, our actions, they have an impact.
So it's about considering the needs of others and not just like focusing on our own desires.
Exactly. Recognizing that we're part of a larger community, right? And our actions have like ripple effects.
Totally. It's like a blueprint for ethical and responsible living, like both individually and as a community. Deuteronomy 23 also delves into some very specific prohibitions against certain religious practices.
Mm.
Things like temple prostitution and offerings gained through dishonest
Oh,
means,
yeah.
strictly forbidden.
Yeah, these prohibitions highlight, I think, moral integrity. It wasn't enough to just, go through the motions of religious rituals. Their actions, they had to be aligned with their beliefs.
So outward displays of piety weren't enough. It was about living a life that reflected like true devotion and ethical conduct.
Precisely. And it's a challenge to us, even today, to examine our own actions and motivations. Are we living in a way that aligns with our values? Or are we compromising our integrity in certain areas of our lives? Are we just going through the motions? Or are we truly embodying the principles we claim to uphold?
It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
Really resonates even like thousands of years later.
Yeah.
It reminds us that true holiness is about more than just like rituals and appearances.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs and, striving to live with integrity in all aspects of our lives.
Yeah, it's amazing how, these ancient texts can still challenge and inspire us today. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Deuteronomy 23, what, stands out to you as the most relevant takeaway for our modern lives?
I think for me, it's the emphasis on living with intentionality.
Oh, yeah.
Look, Deuteronomy 23 reminds us that every action, every decision, even the small ones, can reflect our values and really shape the world around us.
Yeah.
Whether it's like how we treat our neighbors, how we keep our promises, or, how we strive for justice and compassion,
Yeah.
our choices, they really matter.
It's about recognizing that we're not just individuals living in isolation.
Right.
We're part of a larger community and, our actions have ripple effects. Exactly. And it's about taking responsibility for those ripple effects, right?
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 23 challenges us to, live with integrity, be mindful of our impact on others, and strive to create a world that reflects the values we hold dear.
It's a tall order,
It is.
but it's a worthy goal. So, dear listener, as we conclude this deep dive, we leave you with this. What resonated with you most from Deuteronomy 23? And how might those ancient principles, shape your actions or interactions with others? Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.